Should we do stretches before we do this?
You can if you want.
Hello, welcome to this week's riveting episode of Fit for Fifo. My name's Marko.
And I'm Jason. And this week we're interviewing Marko. Firstly, I'd just like to say if you're not following us on YouTube, subscribe. Please subscribe, that'll really help us. Instagram also. As I said, we're talking to Marko this week. His background in Fifo is quite extensive. Prior to that, he was working in the Airforce.
Yeah.
So you're a supervisor in Fifo?
Superintendent in Fifo, and I got up to the rank of sergeant in the military, so looking after people there as well. Mm-hmm. So basically been involved in man management and looking after people or wiping their ass, whatever you want to call it,
yep.
Since 1992.
Right. And how long ago, are you retired now from it? Or?
Yeah, I stopped working in 2015, became a single parent, and obviously I can't let someone else bring up my son, so I need to be home. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I still do some small shutdown work if it's required, or just to keep the brain in the game.
Yep.
I'm a little bit too young to be playing air guitar and Guitar Hero and PlayStation all day long.
Yeah. Cool. Firstly, I reckon we get to crack a beer, and you've already cracked yours.
I've already cracked mine.
Do this beer review.
Are we all checking out these really cool stubby coolers? Jason's done a superb job.
They're not actually for sale yet, but just made a couple. So this week we did, on last episode, we did Yuli's Australian Ale, and this week we're doing Yuli's Mediterranean Lager.
Mediterranean Lager.
Yep,
do I have to get out the cheese and olives?
Have you got any?
No.
So this is a sea bass, it's called. I actually didn't talk too much about the actual beer itself. So the reason we're reviewing Yuli's beer is he's actually my neighbour.
Oh, right.
The guy who runs it, from Sydney. And he's a good bloke, a hard-working bloke, family guy. I just wanted to give him a bit of a rap, on his beer. Yeah,
have you tapped into his water line and you got beer?
No, please.
Use a bit of quarter-inch. Where instrument text, you can use a bit of half-inch tube and pipe that shit right into your house.
Yeah. But anyway, no, he's actually, the reason is I think the beer's bloody good beer, to be honest. But
it does taste
we'll
good.
See what you say, yeah.
It does taste a little bit like a pale ale, to be honest.
Yeah.
An IPA.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
it's preservative free actually, and looks like he's won a couple of awards with it.
Excellent.
It's good.
It's always good to try new beer, especially when someone else pays for it. Bing!
What do you think of the logo?
Looks like Mr. Miyagi.
No, it's good. I really like that beer actually. It does taste a little bit. It goes down pretty easy, doesn't it? Like a lager. It's not bad for a summer, I reckon. Back to Marko, introducing Marko. So I've got this new segment that I started on the last episode, and it's about getting to know the character, who is yourself today, guest, and it's called Stalkbook.
Stalkbook?
So I've got some photos of you. I've gone onto your Facebook.
Right.
And got a few photos, and they're not really, I was trying to find some embarrassing ones. I couldn't really find anything really embarrassing, but I just thought these ones would explain a little bit about you and your background. So this one here, I'll just put it up on the thing so you don't need to show the thing. But yeah, just this one here, and then there's another one. Just wanted to see what the story is behind these.
Right. So this one here, they had a problem with an aircraft on deployments one time, and we were actually not at work. Mm-hmm. It was my time off, and they needed someone to come in and fix a flight control problem.
Yep.
And I think we came straight out of the Penrith RSL,
yep.
And I think we were all a bit drunk at the time, and
right.
And they had to do a flight, and the supervisor at the time became sick, and we were doing night shift. They called us in on day shift to fix an aircraft, and my clothes were in the washing machine, my uniform. That's why I'm wearing civilian clothes.
Right, fair enough. But more to the point, I suppose, the aircraft. So you worked in the Air Force. What is it that you actually did?
I was an instrument fitter. I started my career as an instrument fitter in the Air Force. And then in their infinite wisdom, they thought they'd amalgamate the instrument, radio and electrical trades to make avionics. It's a little bit like the dual trade cross-dressing electrical instrument thing we've got going on now.
Did you find many similarities, like changing industries, going from working for the military into FIFO?
It's very, very funny you mention that, Jason, because I tried to do that. I mean, obviously the technology in an F-111 aircraft is pretty intense. And I had a couple of telephone interviews to get jobs in the mining industry, and someone chastised me and said, well, you don't know anything about control valves. Well, fair enough, I never even knew what a control valve was, and I Googled it. Well, it's got nothing in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So somebody convinced me that, or someone convinced the right people that I should maybe get a start, and that's...
Yep.
And then I found out what a control valve was. Big green thing, you belt it, it goes up and down.
Yep.
And from there, that's how my career started. That was at Roxby Downs in the uranium mine.
Right. And what about in terms of the lifestyle? Is it very similar, do you think, or is it very different?
No, because we used to stay in 5-star hotels in Vegas and in the Air Force, or we went to Japan, or we go to Malaysia. Right. And we stay in nice places, and obviously FIFO camps we all know what they are, tin sheds. Yep. But look, you know, it is what it is. You know, it's just something to get used to. You can't really expect people to build purpose-built camps for people in the middle of nowhere when you're only going to be there for 2 or 3 weeks and then go somewhere else.
Yeah, like talking construction, I suppose.
Exactly right. Well, a lot of the big mines have got shutdown camps as well. They're just like an annex on the side of the main building, of the main camp, that they use just for shutdown personnel.
Yeah, yeah. All right, back to Stalkbook.
Stalkbook.
All right, so second, so that was the first 2 photos.
That's an F-111 cockpit.
Now the next one, yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Now this one, what's going on there, mate? I hope this isn't on the job site.
No, that's that drum over there you can see in the background there. Yeah. I put that in the backyard and I burn all my leaves.
Oh, right.
Because I live with a lot of trees around my house, within 3 months I'd have 3 inches of leaves on my roof, and I've got to rake them off. Okay. And I rake them into a pile and I start a fire in my backyard.
Oh, good. So
yeah,
so it's nothing on the job.
Yes, it's not a bomb or anything.
Yeah, I noticed. Oh, fuck. I noticed you didn't have a hard hat on, so it's good you're not on site. Right,
yes.
What's going on here?
Oh, yeah, that's a bloody hell. You have gone back. That's 1993. I decided that I'd ride a motorcycle from the Gold Coast, or from Ipswich to the northern tip of the Australian continent. Yeah. On a Honda Dominator NX650 Thumper, which I did. And I met this Asian guy, and he had his whole motorcycle full of shit. Like he almost had a barbecue strapped to it. And I told him he's got to get rid of some of that stuff. And he didn't even have any spare oil or spare tyres or oil or anything.
So you took him under your wing? Yeah,
I met him in Mackay, and people don't understand, from here to Cape York is 3,500 k's one way. Right. I met him at Mackay, which is about halfway.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
he's a bit underprepared, was he?
Yes.
Severely.
I noticed he's got a kidney belt on though, so he's all good with that.
Yeah, and he's got his looks like a martial arts shirt on. The first thing I thought when I saw this was Street Fighter. Street Fighter. You're like the military dude, and this is like Mr. Miyagi.
Can I tell you a funny story quickly about him? His name was Yukiya Chuzitu, whatever. Yep. He loved to have a shower or a bath in a hand basin. Because obviously we're travelling at Cape York. I used to just finish riding for the day and go and sleep under a tree. He decided he needed to be clean. So I went for a pee, and here he is, got his feet in the hand basin, and then I turned around, he's got his ass in the sink, trying to wash himself in the sink, in a tiny little roadhouse up at Banniger somewhere in North Queensland. Yeah. Hilarious. I said, don't worry about showering. He goes, no, I've got to be clean.
Oh, good on him. Cool, so now let's get into why I brought you on the show. So in previous episodes, we've had workers on FIFO, from FIFO, different trades and whatnot, and I actually worked with Marko on a project, and we got chatting, and he offered to do an interview, which was, I think, it's a great opportunity to have a chat to someone who's had been in supervisor's role, superintendent, all these different roles he's I suppose experienced, and I thought it was a good opportunity to have a chat to him and find out about, I suppose, the different pressures and the things that people don't really ever think about, and dig a little bit deeper into what you do and the challenges that you face in your role. So do you want to start, just give us a bit of a background on sort of what you do and I suppose things that people don't really expect to
Sure, well, because I'm getting a bit older, I just wrote some points down here, and I've got to have my glasses on. But what I wanted to bring up is that every supervisor is different, and they put different importances on different things. A lot of people are driven by KPIs, which is job progression type goals. For me personally, I value the wellness of the workers and the safety of the workers tenfold above anything else. So every morning, when I was working over in WA and Barrow Island, especially because it's such an abrasive environment to work in, I made sure that I used to always start the pre-starts with, is everybody okay? And I used to make eye contact with everyone in the crew. just to make sure that their head was in the game, because some people would be staring into space and everything. And after the pre-start, I'd go and talk to them and say, look, obviously your concentration isn't there. Is there anything you want to tell us? I don't want to probe into their personal life, but at the end of the day, well, you need to still do that. Mm-hmm. So in the military, we had to also coach people's wives on why their husbands had to be deployed to places all over the world at 2 hours' notice. Well, that's just what you do. Mm-hmm. So one thing I didn't agree with was the whole window seat. What do you call that? The whole window seat attitude. You make a mistake, you get a window seat. So for anyone that's new in the industry...
Fear tactics.
Yeah, fear tactics, that's exactly right. Window seat means you're fired. So here's some young bloke, he's really excited, he's pumped, he's got his first job, he rocks up there, meets all the management, and then they're talking about, if you do this, you got a window seat, if you do that, you got a window seat, if you do this, you got a window seat. So the poor bloke, who doesn't even want to actually pick up a tool in case he inadvertently makes a human error, which we all do. So... one other thing we had to do as well is learn people's strengths and weaknesses and employ them accordingly, because obviously no one knows everything.
Yep.
So trying to fit people into crews where they could be exposed to, I was an instrumentation supervisor and superintendent, so as Jason knows, he does the same thing. Well, our job encompasses many different things within a massive plant. So you don't want people thrown into the deep end, because it does things for their self-esteem. So you want to try and you really want to try and nurture people's morale. That's one of the things that I really think is important.
Yeah. I suppose one thing that, as a supervisor, you must, I suppose, everyone expects that you're to put on a brave face all the time. Because if their leader or supervisor or whatever is struggling and having problems, they might, not feel confident in what they're doing, or the team as a whole. So how do you deal with that, like yourself? Like when obviously you're like a normal human, you have problems, you have issues and stuff. How do you manage to continue to do things, and what do you basically do to manage that?
Well, that's true. It's as a superintendent or supervisor, or even we were on the tool. We were all on the tools once, and we understand what the pressures are. That's a good question. And no, you don't want to show any weakness to the blokes. But if we have a problem ourselves, then we've got a chain of command that we need to follow. So we bring it up with upper management, but we don't let our subordinates know what it is that we're doing. So but a lot of times we used to get dissatisfaction talking to our management, because a lot of the management people were institutionalised. They're in the industry that long. They didn't really give a fuck about anyone. And I found that disheartening. So that's one of the reasons I quit my job at Barrow, because of the small-mindedness of management. And, did I answer your question?
No. Talking about yourself. How do you deal yourself when you've got a problem on the job? And then, are we talking
personal problems?
Exactly, yeah. You got problems, and you've got a whole team you need to lead.
Oh no! Well, I needed to. As a supervisor, we were able to use telephones and shit, even though it was a telephone-free site. And if I had a problem at home, which I did have, my son had epilepsy at the time, having fits in the shower, and my wife at the time ringing me, "What do I do?" Okay. And it was a big thing. It was a big deal. And I can't just go and fly home. It's 24 hours to get home. Yeah. It's taxing, but you just got to. Well, I don't know how you deal with it, mate. You don't become hard through it. You still suffer just as much as the next bloke. Yeah. But you just got to soldier on, man. Yeah, that's exactly right. But what it does do, because of those things affected me personally, I tended to be a lot more sensitive to other people's needs, and I could really feel for them. And I made a lot of people's lives happy by making the impossible happen, by flying them home if they got a problem. Right. HR didn't want to do it. I'm going, well, what? Because there's been a lot of fatalities in Fifo. Yep. Home stresses of people have done themselves in, and I keep bringing that up. Yeah. And
be brutally honest with them.
Well, I do. I say to them, look, this guy's got a problem. He needs to fly home. If he doesn't, I'm holding you accountable. Right. And as soon as you say that, they've got to do something. Okay. Yeah. Even me myself, my son had epilepsy. I needed to fly him at one time as well, and they flew me home. Right. Yeah. So we're all human beings at the end of the day. Yeah. No one's better than anyone else.
Right. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Being a supervisor, tell us. Is there any? An experience you've had? What's the hardest experience you've had to?
That's a very easy one to answer, Jason. It's having to fire people. It's not something I like doing. The hardest thing ever was at Barrow Island. I caught one guy on a cell phone. Now, cell phones were meant to be left in the camp or on the boat. I lived on the cruise ship Europa, which was docked at Barrow, and 1,500 of us lived on that. And the first instinct, it's like anything, when you fall over in public or you're drunk or you shit yourself, the first thing you do is, who else saw it? No one else around, make a split decision, put that phone away, put it in your bag, I never saw it. But on other occasions there's been things where I've had pressure on me by upper management to fire people, and it's not a good thing. One story happened, can I mention it?
What do you need to mention?
All about terminating somebody.
Yeah, I suppose, like... Maybe.
No, well, I had to terminate someone, and but I was in a carpool with him, and it was his turn to drive, and I had to fire him.
Yeah, right.
So I had the termination letter ready to give him, and when he dropped me off at my house, I gave it to him.
Oh, God.
That was terrible.
Yeah,
but they're there.
But I suppose it's almost like being a traffic inspector, parking inspector. Can you imagine that job? Like,
Yeah.
every single day, you like...
Upsetting people.
Wrecking people's day.
Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't be good, would it? Yeah, so also, so you've been married a few times?
Yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah, and how has FIFO affected your marriages, like in positive and negative ways? Anything?
Well, there's nothing positive about it at all. The only positive thing about it is the influx of money. But while I did fly in, fly out, well, in the military you don't really do fly in, fly out. Well, you suppose you do fly in, fly out. But you just become... what happens is you become institutionalised, living in the box, by yourself, in your room, and then when you get home and you're surrounded by your loved ones, you can feel a little bit crowded, and you're not used to that, and you become a little bit distant from your own family. That's one thing I did notice. And my first marriage ended because of that, because one particular day I was in Las Vegas with the Airforce, living the life, having a great time, and the next day I'm home watching Home and Away with my family, and I just couldn't... I suppose I was immature back then, this is 20 years ago, so I walked out of that marriage because I wasn't, the white picket fence kind of guy. The second marriage, well, that was a different story, but that had nothing to do with FIFO, but...
Yeah, but it puts a lot of pressure on you.
Oh, it does, like I had to read stories to my son over the phone, and my wife at the time, then she wasn't my son's mother, so there was always that my mum type thing, and then I'd have to get involved and say, look, Will, you need to do what Jasmine says, blah blah blah. But she was a champion, and we're still friends to this day. So
that's good. I suppose it sounds like, without actually being in a marriage, I've had relationships through FIFO, though my initial thought is like for someone to go into FIFO, a lot of people are going to do it regardless, no matter what anyone else says, which is fair enough, but I think to survive it is to create a plan amongst you and your partner, or your wife, and it being very transparent, and both of you is like, right, this is the deal, and have like almost checkpoints where like after a year you talk to each other and say, hey, what do you reckon, continue or not? I suppose they're being transparent about it. That's a fantastic idea. A lot of people don't do that. Yeah, and I suppose on top of that, both of you have like an agreement that, and I've heard this a few times, and I've actually, a few of the interviews, people have actually brought this up, and I thought it was a great idea, was that both of you have a get out clause, like if one of you is struggling, then it's like, right, it's time to finish it, we're done, just go back to your normal life, But in saying that, this is like, we're talking, for me, I'm not sure about you, but from my experience, a lot of it's been construction, so it's like pretty heavy rosters compared to like these maintenance jobs where they're doing even time, 7 days on, 7 days off. I think that is something that people probably do their whole life, but that's my opinion, but I suppose everyone's different. I don't know what you think about it. Even time rosters are great, but look, any work that takes you away from your family, it doesn't matter how cruisy the job is, you're still not there. Yeah, right. When your child takes his first walk, or when your kid's having a bad dream and just wants a cuddle from daddy. Right. And sometimes cuddles work well with children. So I've got 3 kids, and my first 2 grew up with me being in the military, and my 14-year-old now, he was 1 month old when I started FIFO, and he was 12 when I finished. So yeah, something that I've thought about, and from what guys I've worked with have said, children don't. A lot of them, from under a certain age, they don't understand why mum or dad's not there, do they? It's just like, they're not there, that's it. They're not like, oh, dad's away making money so I can go to a nice private school or have a good life. Well, it's the same as airline pilots' children. They're never home either. Right, yeah. So I suppose, without having children myself, that's the only sort of guess I can say about it. With the effect. I'm very, very lucky that my children never equated my FIFO work to money. It was never about that. Right. It was about dad's not here. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's sort of a shame. Yeah. I started off my career doing power station shutdowns, a bit like yourself, or turbines or whatever. It was only ever 2 or 3 weeks here and there. And in between that, I was in the Downer office. I worked for Downer Engineering on a 6.5-week shutdown, and that ended up lasting 9.5 years. I became the superintendent, and I looked for jobs and did business development, did many things. Worked in Australia, New Guinea and New Zealand. So it was good. It was a good thing, but
Then when I started getting to the major projects and getting on these brutal rosters, I fell apart, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I really admire people who do 3 and 4 years on 28 and 7.
Yeah. 4 weeks on, 1 week off.
Yeah. I mean, you got to know, a lot of people want to buy more and more toys. You know, you need to base everything that you want to buy on long-term commitments. On what happens if I lose my job and I need to go to a 38-hour week in town.
Yep.
That's what you need to. That's what you need to base your borrowing capacity on, not on your FIFO wage, because nothing is guaranteed in life.
Yep, of course.
You know, I mean, me myself, I was on leave, I was on holidays, and then I got a phone call from my last job and said, look, you've been made redundant, we're giving you 4 weeks notice. And I thought, well, that's cool, you know. But I was told I was only going to get 3 months there, and I got 6.
Yeah. And so how many years did you say you were in FIFO again, sir?
12.
12 years.
Yeah.
And how many times has that happened to you, being away on swing and you've been given your redundancy?
Once.
Just once?
Yep.
Okay. And how about unplanned redundancy, like being on a job where, you know, we've got 12 months on this project when you start, and then like 2 months down the track, it's like, see you later?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, Jason. I never, ever did any of those. I only ever did short jobs. The whole 12 years, it was just 2 weeks here, 3 weeks there. Even upstream jobs. You work upstream?
Yeah.
You work upstream?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, that was a 3-in-1 roster. I'd only ever do 3 swings, and that's the end of it. The job would finish.
Oh, okay. Right.
Because that's how because I was doing business development, I'd go and talk to Santos, I'd go talk to you know, all the other major players,
Yep.
and find out from them their requirements, and then I'd have to put together, well, how long is it going to take to do the job? And it'd only be like 3 months, and that was great. There was never any of this forever.
Yeah.
So,
12 years, yeah.
you know, sometimes I'd have to go to MacArthur River in the Northern Territory. I only ever did 2 jobs in Western Australia.
Yeah.
So that was enough for me. You know, I don't really like working over there.
Yeah. I never actually went west, I really did, but...
Yeah, most of my jobs are in Queensland.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now, what do you do now?
I do nothing. I started blogging. I've started a travel blog, www.tiredasstraveller.com. Check that shit out. It's good. It's how to travel around the world for fuck all.
Nice. And so you're retired or semi-retired? Do you do any projects or?
No, I don't do anything anymore. Because I'm a full-time father, I don't really want to palm my son off onto other people.
Right.
I have done a couple of small jobs, power stations in Mount Isa. I've got a couple of friends that own their own instrumentation companies, and they might need someone for 2 or 3 weeks or something. I go and do that.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah. Right. And what's in store? So how old are you, Mark?
I'm 55.
55.
Yeah, I stopped working when I was 52.
52. And what's the plan for the future now?
Well, my plan is to, just to keep cruising as a single parent. My passion is travelling. So I'm virtually in and out of airports all the time, taking my son with me, as you've seen on social media. And but that's got to have to stop now for a while. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I thought about maybe doing, I don't know, people always ask me, go do a degree in something, you know, go to university. I'm really not inclined.
Yeah. So I suppose that's quite 52 to be able to be in a position where you can your own choices of whether you want to, you know, work or not, or study or travel and stuff. That's pretty.
Well,
would you say attribute that to doing FIFO, like being able to set yourself up, or?
Well, this house got paid for mortgage free through FIFO, and I get looked after pretty well through my military pension.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I get paid that till the day I die.
Okay.
So that's, I mean, we're not talking big money, but it's enough to pay my bills up here in the mountain where I live. And
so just a mixture of your whole life, I suppose.
Yeah, you know, I try to mix around. I'm trying to take on a bit of a holistic lifestyle now too. You know, I used to drink a lot of beer and smoke and be really unhealthy and fat, and now I'm just not so fat. I don't smoke, but I still drink just as much.
Yeah. Cool.
I do miss the fight. Look, you know, FIFO is like an adrenaline thing. You do your first swing, it's all exciting, new people, new airports, you know. But within 2 swings, it's the same shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the same fucking camp.
Yeah. Well, and what's your highlights of FIFO? Tell us, like, what's the thing that stands out in your mind, which you enjoyed the most, or?
Well, I'd have to say working with blokes like yourself. The last job I worked at Curtis Island, that was probably my career highlight. I worked with some really good people. You know, I mean, obviously as a supervisor, you have to. I found I didn't have to spoon feed anyone, and I was able to connect with a lot of people on a social level as well. After hours, having a couple of drinks with them, and that was a bit of a highlight.
Yep.
A couple of other things that I really enjoyed was working in Lahire Gold up in New Guinea. That was a good experience, having New Guinean nationals working with us, and you know, they showed us some of their villages and some of their culture. That was good. And then I did a job in New Plymouth, New Zealand. Worked in a methanol plant for 6 weeks. That was fantastic.
Okay.
You know, working there and looking out over the snow-capped mountains, it was pretty incredible.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. So I suppose to summarise that, from what I'm hearing, it's just the people you work with.
Well, people make the job, mate. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. You know, you could be working in the best place in the world. If you're working with people that you don't really get on with or people that are abrasive, it doesn't work.
Yep, yep.
Hence why I left Barrow Island.
Cool. All right. Let's throw this Facebook thing on, Just see if we get any people want to ask some live questions. It looks like we're live now. I think it might show us when people log on. We'll wait. We'll give it a few minutes. We'll leave it and just continue with these few final questions. So I just wanted you've spent a bit of time over in Thailand, I suppose.
Yes, I particularly love the Land of Smiles. We were going to talk about these,
cool.
aren't we?
Oh yeah, we can do that, exactly,
Yeah. Land of Smiles is what Thailand's called, and I like to embrace myself in the whole Buddhist culture, and I went and did some Thai cooking classes while I was there. Went and got a Thai driver's license, you know. Love it, man. I just can't get enough of Thailand.
Right.
So that's where I'm going to end up when
So FIFO workers, and is it a big community over there? Like, is there guys that fly in and out of Thailand doing jobs? Or?
Yeah, I've got a couple of mates that live in Udon Thani that do fly in, fly out. They're working in Darwin, flying from Darwin straight to Thailand. That's a lot closer. I suppose it depends on where you're geographically located in Australia, because you need to be able to get connecting flights. You know, if you have to spend planes, trains and automobile kind of thing just to get to work, it sort of takes away the value of living overseas and doing FIFO. But a lot of people go to Bali in their week off or whatever, you know.
Yeah. And living over there, yeah.
Well, not necessarily living, but that's where they go when they're 7 days off.
Yeah.
A lot of people doing FIFO don't actually need to maintain a residence either, because you can work away for 4 weeks living in a camp and then go and spend your week off somewhere else.
Yep. Yeah, it's that's one of the really benefits of it, I suppose, for freedom, Also, so Marko, you wanted to, which I think is a great idea, you wanted to share a book that you've read.
Yes, this is hilarious.
Yeah, so this is, I suppose, a good one for FIFO workers to be able to relate to. It's a similar industry.
These are a couple of books that you could buy at the airport and you can read them on the plane. Hilarious.
Yeah, so what's the title? Tell us the title of that one.
This one is Don't Tell Mum I Work on the Rigs, Tell Her I'm a Piano Player in a Whorehouse.
Yeah.
And this one is called This Is Not a Drill, by a guy called Paul Carter.
Yeah.
And it talks about working on oil rigs.
Yeah. I think, so it's just life. He worked all over the world.
Yes.
He's got some really funny stories in it. Actually, to be honest, that was that oil rig, the first one he wrote. I'd never really enjoyed reading a book until that, and that was the thing that set me off and got me into reading. So I think, yeah.
And you said you also read the one about the motorcycle running on...
I've got it. I haven't read it, no, but it's definitely on the list there. So it sounds good.
Yeah, he wrote a book about driving a motorcycle around Australia, running on fish and chip oil. Who thinks of this shit? That's clever.
It's good. All right, I've actually got a couple of questions. So these are some cool questions from this guy who is an author, and he's a pretty well-known guy. Anyway, I've just 3 of the questions off here I want to ask you. So the first one, and if you can relate this to FIFO, that'd be cool. If not, it doesn't matter. So how has a failure in your life set you up for success later? What's like a failure that you've experienced that's helped you in the future? By maybe learning something from it, or something that at the time you went, oh shit, and then in the future you're like,
oh yeah,
actually I'm glad that happened. Well,
when I started working in the mining industry, I tried to implement some ideas that I had, and I got into a bit of trouble for thinking outside the square.
Yep. Basically
got told, look, you're on the tools, so what you say doesn't really matter, and so I used to get chastised for that. And then I took it on board, and then later on when I became a supervisor, I did the exact opposite. I then asked people for their input, because everybody learns something every day.
Right.
From anyone. Doesn't matter whether you're the cleaning the floor, the toilet, or whatever, or you're the project manager.
So I suppose it was not really your failure, but it was more like something that you discovered that was a failure in a management system.
Well, I guess my failure was that I opened my mouth too soon. I should have just shut up and pretend I knew nothing.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. Next question.
You didn't tell me about these before. You didn't pre-warn me.
No, well, I didn't want you to plan them. It's good for you to have a quick think about it. All right. Have you got any absurd or unusual habits or things that you do that people would be like, what? That's really odd.
Actually, that's a good question too. I like to talk. When I travel the world a lot, and especially the United States. I like to make sure I talk for 20 minutes to a total stranger every single day.
Yeah, right. 20 minutes every day.
20 minutes. I even look at my clock to make sure I time it. And my son says, Dad, that's only 15 minutes. You've got to keep talking another 5 minutes. So whether I'm filling up fuel station in the United States or I'm in Thailand buying Chang beers at the 7-Eleven and I see some person that looks interesting, 20-minute conversation every single day to someone.
Yeah.
Is that strange or not?
Well, it's not strange, but it's a bit different, isn't it?
It is.
People don't actually have that as a habit, or that's good. And why do you do that?
I don't know, man. It's just I just love talking to people. It's just, because I don't know whether you can work it out. I'm a bit of an extrovert, right? And a lot of people are wrapped up in their own lives and, this is the world now. I'm on my phone. I'm on the drug that killed River Phoenix. They don't interact with other people, and I like to take people back to the basics and say, would you like to have a chat about something? Get off the phone, mate.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. No, that's good. And I suppose every single conversation you have, you're opening up the possibility to learn something new. Right?
Well, a lot of people are fascinated to hear about travel experiences, or they comment about the hire car we had.
So are you the one doing the talking, or the other one, or just the conversation?
No, well, they don't get a word in. So what I'm saying, I'm having a conversation with people. It's just me talking, and they do a lot of fucking listening.
Where can if people want to follow you on something, where can they actually follow you? Just out of interest, people might want to. Yeah. Well,
if you want to follow my travel blog, it's www.tightassedtraveller. That's tight-assed, as in past tense, tightassedtraveller.com, all one word. I talk about my travels in the Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, United States, Canada, suggesting travel tips to people who got no money, which is us Fifo workers.
Less money, yeah.
Yeah. No money, no honey. Yeah.
Have we got any? Let's just see if we've got any questions from anyone. What do we got here? Who's the good-looking bloke on the left? That's you, mate.
Yeah, I'm Marko. I've got a head like a beaten favourite.
Okay. What if they're still talking? You've had enough. Alright. So, what if they're still talking and you've had enough? At the 20 minutes, is there permission to cut it short?
Well, they just go. They just do these ones. I've got to go. And then they go. Yeah. No, I've cornered people at service stations, and I can tell that they just want to go, and then I try and see how long I can make them talk. But I never. One thing I do when I talk to people, I don't involve any religion, politics, or any of that. I don't get involved in all that Trump bullshit. Yeah. It's just talking about whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, I actually got one more question for you.
Okay.
So in, I suppose, a normal context, and also in the FIFO context, what advice would you give to a smart, driven, young high school student, and what advice would you tell them to ignore about life in general?
Avoid opinionated people. Try and take advice from people that are speaking from experience, and people that are generally positive in their outlook on life. Mate, there's people out there that complain about diamonds shoved up their ass because they were cut the wrong way. You know what I mean? So you need to, for young people, listen to everyone. I'm not saying you need to shun people because they might be a dickhead or whatever, but listen to what everyone has to say. But most of all, talk to your parents. Your mum and dad have always got advice. Give them the advice that you've been given, and then tell your parents, look, this is what I've been told. Do a bit of Googling. Check out Jason's Fit for Fifo channel. Listen to what other people have said. But you know what? At the end of the day, we're just doing it for the money. That's the only reason we're doing it. We're not doing it because we like living at airports or getting fatter on mess food. We're doing it for the money. So don't overcapitalise yourself and pretend just pretend you're working 38 hours a week at Bunnings, and you'll be sweet. Right? You are going to meet people along the way, and you are going to experience lots of different things.
So I've got something that, so you mentioned to me in the week about a calendar that you used to see around, and it was for children.
Yeah, it was my FIFO family. It's on the fridge still.
Okay, yep. And the idea of that was so children can see when their parents are going to be home?
Yeah, they could tick off and put a little smiley. They could have a smiley face on the calendar, and then when Dad's home,
So I've got a bloke called Aaron White. He's a dump truck driver, and I think he was. I suppose this was probably created out of necessity. I think he was having issues explaining to his young fella, or maybe not so much issues, but wanted to explain to his young fella what he was doing. So he decided to publish a book, and from that he's actually published a few of them. So I thought it was a great idea. I thought it was awesome. He's a dump truck driver. This is clearly not going to make him rich, but he's selling these books. And I just thought I'd show you and see what your thoughts were on it. So
Oh, MT5010 mine trucks. Yeah.
so basically, it's just long story short, it's sort of explaining to children. I'd say it's probably aimed at children up to like the ages of like 6 and 7, and it just gives them a brief description of what trucks are.
But does he talk about the impact that daddy's away work? Is he bringing up the? He's talking about what the trucks do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but I mean.
In a simplistic way for small kids. Yeah.
Just to see because obviously daddy's going away and they wonder.
We'll talk about
where's
beer
daddy
bombs.
going? Where's daddy going and what's he doing?
Yeah.
And so I think it's great.
Careful
Anyway.
the water, don't get that on you.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought I'd show you that.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
That is a good thing because at the end of the day, our kids are our life, and no job is that important. Mm-hmm. Look, to be honest with you, I don't know who's listening and who gives a fuck, but the amount of people that I heard on the phone, because a lot of jobs you can't take your phone to work, so 6 o'clock the blokes are ringing their families, and by the time it's the time difference, it's 9 o'clock somewhere else in Australia, and then you can hear them arguing on the phone, just one more job, and then they come home and their house is empty. The wife's had enough. Australia, you need to listen. As Jason said, have an exit strategy with your family. If you don't want to keep doing it anymore, money, there's no good taking money. You don't see, money can't rule your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. No, that's good. We'll finish it up. But anyway, I just got a t-shirt for you, mate.
Excellent.
The first one to receive one of the Fit for Fifo.
Excellent.
Merch.
Check this out. It's even big enough to fit my fat ass. Check that out. Thank you, Jason, man. It's been really sensational talking with you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. And it was really good to
catch up.
I
I haven't seen you for 3 years.
I know. Well, yeah, it's gone quick, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has.